Welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today. We're putting on our tutor hats and diving headfirst into a real masterclass on organizational behavior. Specifically, we're unlocking the core mechanics of leadership. If you're a focused learner who wants to go beyond just the high-level theory and you really want to grasp the real-world applications of influence and power, well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to break down the source material step by step today. So let's figure out together how to actually apply these foundational theories to solve real business problems. And hey, if you're a student, I'm going to show you exactly how to ace your next exam on this topic. Let's get right into it.
Okay, to kick things off, I want you to complete this sentence for me. Some people think they are good leaders, but they are not because they... Just take a second, how would you finish that thought? Why is true leadership so incredibly misunderstood in the corporate world? Look, the truth is, a lot of managers walk around thinking they are just brilliant leaders simply because they have a fancy title on their door. Or, they know how to perfectly balance a quarterly budget. But as we're going to see today from our source text, that is a fundamental misunderstanding of what leadership actually is. So, keep your own answer to this question tucked in the back of your mind as we unpack the reality of influence.
All right, here is our syllabus for today's masterclass. We'll start with number 1, the core of leadership. Then 2, modern contemporary leadership styles. 3, sources of leader power. 4, mastering interpersonal influence tactics. 5, real-world application steps. And we'll wrap up with number 6, an exam prep masterclass.
Chapter 1. The core of leadership. Let's lay down the foundational theory.
First things first, it is absolutely vital to separate leadership from standard management. Our source defines leadership as the process of inspiring others to work hard to accomplish important tasks. But you know what the really crucial part of this definition is? It's understanding that leadership is fundamentally about the ability to influence people toward hitting goals. It's a reciprocal process. That means it happens among people. It is strictly a people activity. And guys, this is very different from administration or problem solving. Think about it. Crunching numbers on a complex spreadsheet, optimizing a global supply chain, or approving a stack of vacation requests, those are incredibly important administrative tasks for sure, but they do not magically make you a leader. Leadership is the messy, human, reciprocal art of influence. It's all about bringing people along with you.
Moving on to Chapter 2, Modern Contemporary Leadership Styles. So, as organizations face massive turbulence and constant environmental changes, our leadership approaches just have to evolve. The source material highlights 4 specific approaches designed for today's turbulent times. We've got servant leadership, where the main focus is totally on facilitating the growth of others, then authentic leadership, which is deeply grounded in self-awareness and moral transparency. We also have remote leadership, which deals with the very modern reality of managing teams across huge digital distances, and finally, interactive leadership, which prioritizes collaboration and building consensus. If you want to be a truly adaptable manager, you really need to understand all of these to survive in today's shifting business landscape. Let's zoom in on those first 2 because they offer an incredible contrast to your typical old-school management philosophies.
Okay, let's talk about servant leadership. The core belief here is that work actually exists for the development of the worker. Servant leaders completely transcend their own self-interest to serve others. They'll willingly give away power, recognition, and credit to their team. To see what this looks like in the real world, the source contrasts 2 real ship captains. On one side, you have Captain Francesco Schettino of the Costa Concordia. When his ship hit rocks and started sinking, Schettino infamously abandoned the ship. He prioritized his own safety while his passengers and crew were still in extreme danger. That is a massive failure of leadership rooted purely in self-interest. But on the flip side, look at Captain Richard Phillips of the Maersk Alabama. When Somali pirates violently boarded his vessel, Captain Phillips actually offered himself up as a hostage to protect his crew. He transcended his own self-interest to serve and protect his people, even at the ultimate cost. That right there is the extreme embodiment of servant leadership in action.
Next up, authentic leaders. These are people who possess deep self-awareness, moral perspective, balanced processing, and absolute transparency in their relationships. The source gives us this phenomenal real-world example of José Mujica, the former president of Uruguay. This is someone who spent 14 years in jail for opposing a dictatorship, and a lot of that time was in brutal solitary confinement. He actually noted that he couldn't even read a book for 7 or 8 years in there, and said he had to find a profound inner strength just to survive. When he eventually became president, his moral perspective and self-awareness were so deeply grounded that he chose to donate 90% of his salary to charity. He only earned the average working wage of his citizens. He didn't want the fancy presidential palace or the red carpet treatment. He just presented his authentic self. He objectively analyzed data to raise salaries and lower unemployment in his country, rather than using his position to fund an expensive lifestyle. That level of transparency and internal moral regulation, that is exactly what authentic leadership looks like in practice.
That brings us to Chapter 3, Sources of Leader Power. We know the styles now, but where does a leader actually get their influence to get things done?
While the source material divides power into two main categories, you've got hard position power and personal soft power, and psychologically speaking, there is a massive difference between the two. Hard position power comes strictly from your job title or your formal rank in the company. It relies completely on the organizational structure. This bucket includes legitimate, reward, and coercive power. On the other hand, personal soft power comes from who you are as a human being. It's about your unique qualities, your emotional intelligence, and the knowledge you've acquired, and this includes expert and referent power.
Let's put our tutor hats back on and really walk through how these specific levers work in a real business environment. Understanding this is absolutely crucial for applying the theory. So first up, legitimate power. This is your pure position power. It's when you have the formal authority to assign work or spend company money, literally just because the organizational chart says you're the boss. Second is reward power. This is when you offer something of value, like awarding salary increases or giving promotions, in direct return for an employee doing what you ask. Third is coercive power. This is the capability to punish. Think withholding a bonus, demoting someone, or giving a really poor performance review. So those are your hard position powers. Now let's look at the personal soft powers. Expert power happens when employees willingly comply because you have undeniably superior knowledge. For instance, maybe you are the absolute master of the company's complex financial models, or you have vital niche geographic expertise about the Cape Town mining market that nobody else has. People listen to you because you clearly know what you're talking about. And finally, referent power. This is when people follow you because of your charismatic appeal, how likable you are, and your visionary qualities. They follow you because they genuinely want to be like you, or they deeply respect you.
But hey, we cannot forget these other essential sources of power that the text mentions: personal effort, building a network of relationships, and being an information gatekeeper. Honestly, that last one is such a fascinating reality in the corporate world. You really do not need a fancy vice president title to be an information gatekeeper. Sometimes it's the executive assistant who strictly controls the CEO's calendar, or the IT specialist who manages the flow of critical internal data. They yield incredible power simply because they control access to vital information. They hold the keys, and that gives them tremendous, undeniable influence.
Moving right along to Chapter 4, Mastering Interpersonal Influence Tactics. So we know where power comes from. Now, how do we use it? The source outlines 6 interpersonal influence tactics, and as we move sequentially from 1 down to 6, we're basically building a dynamic toolkit that a leader can use to achieve way greater influence over their followers.
Let's look at how to actually apply these in a practical learning-by-doing scenario so you could literally use them tomorrow. Tactic 1 is use rational persuasion. In a business setting, this means bringing hard, verifiable data to a meeting to mathematically prove why a new marketing budget is necessary, rather than just saying, hey, I think it's a good idea. Tactic 2 is help people like you. Just show genuine interest in their lives. Tactic 3 is rely on the rule of reciprocity. Now, the crucial point here is human psychology. If you're in a high-stakes business negotiation, doing a small favor for the other party first, like maybe sharing a genuinely helpful industry contact, that activates the rule of reciprocity. They're going to feel a deep psychological urge to return the favor when you make your actual request. Tactic 4 is develop allies. Take the time to grab coffee with cross-functional managers and build a solid coalition before you pitch a massive project. Tactic 5 is be assertive. And look, this doesn't mean being aggressive. It simply means asking for what you want clearly and confidently, without apologizing for your needs. Finally, Tactic 6 is make use of higher authority. This means strategically aligning your request with the stated goals of upper management or the board of directors to give your initiative some undeniable weight.
Chapter 5, Real-World Application Steps. It is time to put all this theory into practice.
All right, imagine this scenario. You have just been assigned to manage a turbulent, entirely remote workforce. They're currently suffering from incredibly low morale and consistently missing deadlines. How do you fix it, step by step, using the source text? Well, step 1, apply remote leadership techniques. Intentionally build team spirit and culture through interpersonal connections. You don't just email them a list of tasks, no. You set up dedicated one-on-one video calls simply to understand their daily challenges and show some real empathy. Step 2, apply interactive leadership.
Develop a consensual and collaborative process. Instead of unilaterally dictating a brand new schedule from on high, hold a digital workshop and let the team build the new workflow together. And step 3, consciously shift your influence to derive from relationships. Use your referent and expert power rather than formal authority. By relying on collaboration rather than immediately punishing them with coercive power like bad performance reviews, you stabilize the team, you rebuild trust, and you generate genuine reciprocal influence.
And finally, Chapter 6, Exam Prep Masterclass.
For all the students tuning in right now, I am putting on my most encouraging tutor voice. If you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, memorize this pro tip for full marks. A classic trick question on organizational management exams will actively try to confuse you by mixing up administration tasks with true leadership tasks. They'll give you a multiple-choice question where a manager is highly optimizing a budget or maybe rewriting a software protocol, and they'll ask you what kind of leadership that is. It is a trap. Always remember the definition we covered at the very beginning. Leadership is entirely a people activity driven by reciprocal influence. Administration and problem-solving are fundamentally different functions. If the answer does not involve influencing humans toward a goal, it is simply not leadership. Drill that specific distinction into your memory, and you will confidently ace those test questions. To conclude our shared discovery today, I want to bring it right back to where we started. We looked at why some people completely fail at leadership. Now here is the final prompt from the text. I want to be the kind of leader who, based on all the evidence we've explored today, from the ultimate servant leadership of Captain Phillips to the authentic transparency of Jose Mojica and the intelligent use of soft personal power, I challenge you to deeply reflect on this masterclass. How will you define your own future leadership style? Are you going to rely solely on the authority of a title, or will you do the hard work to build true reciprocal influence? Thank you so much for joining me today, Focus Learners. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.